have to pass by this preserve, and sometimes you'll see deer venturing on the main canal to drink water. It's a sight to see. Yesterday, spearheaded by our EPO, Preserve, and other tribal services, a Drive-Through Earth Day event was held at the preserve. This year's theme was Knowledge is of the Land, and it was our 13th year to hold this event. In addition to an ecological treasure, the preserve, as we all know, has been a true gem for the education of our people, both in conservation efforts, but also cultural. This is a before and after. Young men and women have grown up with this project to create a true community asset. This slide shows young boys. They're adults now. They have families of their own, but they participated in planting of trees when the preserve got started. From providing hands-on real-world experience in the areas of habitat development, the preserve has been a true land laboratory where our people and visitors can learn skills and improve our environment. This is a slide showing what it looks like today. Lush and beautiful green, lots of birds there. So annually, we celebrate a mega throw. And what is a mega throw? It's bird singing and dancing event that has been happening every year. However, when COVID-19 happened, we didn't allow gatherings. So this year was the first event to be held, and there were hundreds of Yuman, which is the speaking group, and the river people who dance and sing bird came and joined in a community effort to sing and dance to keep our traditions alive. It was a social event. So CRIT is proud to host the event under the lush trees of our preserve. This is also a before picture showing, how it looked there on the lands and the backwaters. So it took a Herculean amount of time and effort in order to create a lush riparian area. It had to be dredged, cleaned to fortify the lands to be able to create a pristine environment for plants, animals, and wildlife. That's what it looks like today. So currently funding from the First Nations, the Arizona Conservation Corps is removing dead trees from the preserve. If you have a garden, if you have a yard, sometimes trees die, and so a lot of the trees have died in the preserve, and so they needed to be kind of weeded out, and so that's what they're working on today. As you see in this picture, it's a tranquil scene. So that's where we gather to fish, canoe, and enjoy our homelands. There is a mesquite bosque on the southern end of our reservation, and these trees are in reserve for our spiritual, cultural, and traditional purposes. Part of our history is the Japanese internment camps. While our men were off at war, it also impacted the Colorado River Indian Reservation. Because of the Memorandum of Understanding between the Interior Department and the War Relocation Authority, they opened up 10 camps. And one of the camps was on our reservation. And under protest of the Tribal Council, which was probably, 5, 6 years old at the time. Our council was formed in 1937. So they didn't have the means, the legal means to stop it. So Camp 1, 2, and 3 were built. And it was one of the largest of 10 camps that housed over 17,000 internees. They wanted to house at least 20,000 internees there, but they fell short of that goal. So at Camp 1 and 2, elementary schools were built, and at Camp 1, a high school was built. And another justification of placing this camp on our reservation was that the railroad goes through the town of Parker, and so they could bring them in by train loads and then bus them down onto the reservation. At that time, Poston, there was no Poston. It was all mesquite thickets, and so land was cleared out to build the barracks there. Also, the government was looking at justification for, the funding for allocating those funds. There were not enough tribal Mohaves and Chemehuevis living on the reservation to justify that funding. So they were looking at ways of how to develop, their livelihood. Most of it was the workers there that worked for the agency. They didn't want to uproot the agency there and take away the services. So this was another justification for keeping things the way it was, the way it was at that time. So after they developed the canals further down onto the reservation, the Japanese Americans planted broccoli and other crops to show that, that the lands were fertile enough and the climate was good for these crops. So after the war ended, it was at that time where in 1945 was when the war ended. So then the detainees were being shipped out and to other areas. So it was at that time the colonization where the Hopis and the Navajos, under a colonization project, were invited to live on our reservation under, again, the protest of our leaders. So in September of 1945, the first Navajo and Hopi families moved on to the reservation, and they lived in the barracks. While the detainees were leaving, they occupied the barracks. This is a monument that stands at the little community of Poston. It was erected by the younger internees. Every October, the Japanese descendants make a pilgrimage to the camps and hold their meetings at our casino. What happened to the barracks? A lot of them were torn down, a lot of them were moved, and the tribes could sell. I did not know it until about 10, 15 years ago that I lived in a barrack. They were cut up in thirds or halves, and so most of the tribal members purchased a barrack, and our families lived in a portion of the barracks. So I can attest to that, living in a Japanese barrack. That was our home for many, many, many years. So we're going to get into a little bit of agriculture now, and share with you what we're doing with the Colorado River Indian tribes. We have always been farmers. before the dams were built, we were farmers. And when the floods came in the springtime, it wet the soil, so the families would go in and plant, and it was enough water in there to germinate the seeds and grow a crop. But agriculture is the backbone of Crit's economy that supplies the region and world with a wide variety of crops and commodities. In 1973, the Tribal Council established Crit Farms as the agricultural enterprise of our tribe. From a modest farm that revitalized expired lease lands, Crit Farms now spans over 34,000 acres and grows a wide variety of crops. The primary three crops grown are cotton, alfalfa, and we all need alfalfa, whether you like it or not. It provides the food for cattle, which provides ice cream. We all like ice cream, right? Yeah, and we all like pizza, the cheese, and I just had a piece last night. And this is, our crops, our hay goes out from California all the way to Japan. We have durum wheat. Recently, we sold our wheat to an Italian pasta company. They shipped it over to Italy, produced it there, and brought it back and sold it probably to many of you sitting in this room as a high-quality spaghetti and pasta. And over the years, the Crit Farms and area farms have worked to diversify crop patterns to include potatoes, seed and dehydrated onions, various other forage crops such as Sudan Bermuda, teff and rye grasses, oat hays, and even experimental crops such as I can't say this word. I see the word and I can't switch it over. Waiuli. I don't know if you know of waiuli, but it is a crop like a grass. Crit Farms is extremely involved in partnering with industry and academia to improve our agriculture practice and create knowledge that can be used by farmers across the world. In this slide, you can see a 40-acre field, and it's split down the middle with a subsurface pipe with risers approximately every 25 feet for water to flood along the snake border on the opposite sides of the fields. So it goes on both sides. This method of flood irrigation splits the field in half and reduces the runs from 1/4 mile to approximately 1/8 mile, making the irrigation time faster and more efficient. It can take at least 16 hours or more by flood irrigation to water a crop. And in this picture, it also shows Crit Farms is growing onions for dehydration, and the surrounding areas are growing durum wheat and mustard seed. We're looking at ways of innovative conservation. So Crit Farms works with a variety of partners, both in academia and industry, to pilot a variety of technologies. From seed to chemicals to irrigation, our management team strives to stay on the cutting edge of agricultural technology. And in 2022, we partnered with several funding partners and an Israeli irrigation company called NDRIP to grow 600 acres of cotton using subsurface micro-irrigation that was being piloted for use across the region. We saw 26% savings on water and had significant yield increase. The University of Arizona is compiling data that will be shared publicly. So our farm manager, Josh Moore, is able to monitor and control field conditions from his phone today. I ventured out about 2 weeks ago on a very windy day because I wanted to see, I knew how the end drip worked in cotton fields, but I couldn't conceptually visualize it, how it worked in alfalfa fields. And so this shows an alfalfa field and how the lines, you'll see the dark lines, those are it's a plastic line that the water flows through and is delivered to the crop. It's amazing. And then the tanks hold the water and then is released. Very sophisticated technology. It's just a little device that is in that strip of plastic that controls the water. So Crit Farms grows a variety of crops. We have a goal of improving cropping patterns to include a diverse array of vegetables and grain crops. We believe we can become the breadbasket of the Southwest with the right planning involved. Images show the germ wheat, short stapled cotton that provides our clothing and household products. Potatoes, of course, the little red potatoes, which uses less water than alfalfa and on sandier soils. It can grow in sandy soils. Carrots are being rotated on Crit farmlands and will be used to make baby carrots, commonly sold in prepackaged containers nationwide. We also can grow onions that will create onion powder. And let me tell you, when they're harvesting the onions, they truck them all the way to Northern California and they pass by my house. And the rumbling of those trucks every day until they're all harvested. And I'm glad by trucks because they rumble along the road. Crit holds the oldest and largest water right in the lower basin, 662,000 acre feet. We have the 56,000 acre feet in California. It increased over the years since the formation of the reservation. Arizona versus California is the consolidated decree that provides our allocation, and it was finalized then in 2006. Due to the drought and in efforts to save the Colorado River, Crit left over 200,000 acre feet of water in Lake Mead under the different programs and fallowed our farmlands to support system conservation during this drought crisis, the DCP, the Drought Contingency Plan, with the state of Arizona and the Bureau of Reclamation. Our efforts raised Lake Mead levels by about 3 feet. And the Colorado River Indian Tribes Water Resiliency Act of 2021 was introduced by Senator Mark Kelly and Sinema. It was introduced by Mark Kelly and sponsored by Senator Sinema. Kristen Sinema, thank you. The legislation cleared the way for Crit to lease water that was previously used on the reservation. It's consumptive use. As I said before, agriculture is one of the main economic of our reservation and provides funding to run our tribal government. Our casino is the other enterprise. And so with the diversion that was flowing back into the river, we weren't, as I said, we weren't getting compensated. So we wanted to lease our water, but we couldn't do that. With the law of the river, we couldn't do that. So we started our venture of getting this legislation passed, and it was finally signed by Biden January 5th, I believe, in 2023. This authority would enable the tribes to allocate its water resources to protect natural habitat along the Colorado River and provide a short-term water supply for entities experiencing drought or shortages across the state. Again, it also provides additional revenue for the tribes. We have not leased our water yet. We are still working on the infrastructure policies and procedures. So once we do that and get our signature from the state of Arizona signed off, our agreement signed off, then we'll be able to move forward. But that's not without the support of the people and input from our tribal members. So this year on May 13th, we'll be celebrating at the preserve our Crit Water Rights Day. And we're looking forward to a big celebration. You all are, if you're in Arizona, you're all invited to come on May 13th to the Colorado River Indian Reservation and partake of that celebration. I want to mention at this time that we, the Mohave people, we Crit are tied to this river. It's our namesake, and our identity is in this river. Our tribal rituals are with this water, with this river. Our traditions, and like I said, our songs, it's who we are, and so we need to save our river as stewards and commissioned by our creator, Mataviily. So today, Crit has a tourism-based economy. Crit is the largest employer in the La Paz County. We employ over 613 employees. Out of those, 340 are tribal members, so we provide employment for our people, first and foremost. The rest are non-tribe, other tribes and non-tribal. We're happy to say that we're 96% COVID vaccinated. We have 37 departments under us, under the tribal government, and we have 16 enterprises. Blue Water Resort is another major enterprise. It's located along the Colorado River and the backwaters of Headgate Dam. You saw the picture of the Headgate and the backwaters. That's called the Muvalia, and that's a Mohave name. And Muvalia means your calf. The story goes that Coyote was going to cross the river. And so before he crossed the river, he saw the shadow of his calf and called that place Muvalia. Muval. And I always tell people that Coyote is still there because our casino is there and trying to trick you out of gambling, of your money. So, so if you ever come, please stay at our casino because it has a beautiful vista of Avikuvatat, our mountain range, in the background. And when you get up early in the morning, the water is flowing and the birds are flying, and it's so comforting at that site. Here's another shot of the casino. And I'll end my presentation. This is our current Little Miss Crit, Alexia. Thank you again for listening to my presentation and for welcoming me here. Your mom, Edka Gorinyem. Thank you. God bless you all. So if anybody has any questions, I'll take them.
Thank you for coming.
Go ahead.
Here. Wasn't that wonderful? And thank you for coming to this lecture. We have several more this afternoon, so come back and join us. Be sure to check us out for all the people that are watching on the web. And you guys, it's americanindian.si.edu, and you can find out more about the museum, how to become a member, and many wonderful things. But thank you for joining us today. And thank you to her.